So in this video, we're going to calculate the exact value of sine of 5 pi over 12. Now you probably do notice that this is not one of the standard angles. This is not like pi over 3 or pi over 4 or pi over 6. And pi over 12 is one we haven't dealt with yet. So one way to deal with this is if we can find a way to write 5 pi over 12 as a sum or difference of two um, angle values that are familiar, well, then we'll be able to use a sum or difference angle formula. And I'm pretty sure we can use either the sum angle formula for sine, alpha plus beta, or the difference angle formula for sine, alpha minus beta. I don't think it matters which one we use. I'm going to go with sum just because I think that'll be easier, probably, although it doesn't really matter. But I'm looking at this number, 5 pi over 12, and I notice that if I write this as 2 pi plus 3 pi over 12, then I can then write this is 2 pi over 12 plus 3 pi over 12. So the difficulty here is that, once someone shows you the overall process, like I'm showing you how to do this, then it's not super difficult, especially when the numbers are not too messy. But if I were to just ask you here, take this number and rewrite it as a sum of two fractions, that would not be so straightforward because you're not usually asked to do that kind of thing. Usually, you're asked to combine two fractions. So you're not usually asked to separate them. We've had an earlier video had something similar to this. So this concept shows up quite a bit in calculus. So in Cal 1 and Cal 2, you'll see this kind of thing from time to time. I can think of a specific example in Cal 1 off the top of my head, but I suppose Cal 2 probably has this as well. Anyway, now I can say, well, sine of 5 pi, oops, being a little messy there. Let's start that over. Sine of 5 pi over 12, well, this is sine of, now 2 pi over 12 is of course pi over 6, and 3 pi over 12 is of course pi over 4. So those are two familiar angles. And I can use the sum angle formula for this. This is sine of pi over 6 times cosine of pi over 4 plus cosine of pi over 6 times sine of pi over 4. Okay, using the sum angle formula for sine, and I actually wasn't looking at it. I've done this problem enough that I remember the formula, but it's totally fine to look at a formula sheet for these. Ideally, by the time you get to Cal 1, you should try to memorize all these formulas, but I'm not going to expect you to know all of these for exams. It's a lot of things to memorize, so don't worry about that too much. You're going to be able to use a formula sheet for exams. So now I can go work the individual factors. So sine of pi over 6, that's going to be 1/2. Cosine of pi over 4, that is root 2 over 2. Plus cosine of pi over 6, that is root 3 over 2. And then sine of pi over 4 is, of course, root 2 over 2. Now, how I combine these is up to me. Maybe I want to leave it like that. That's an answer. I might want to clean up a little bit. I might want to say that this is, say, root 2 over 4 plus root 6 over 4. So if I want, I can say I have root 2 plus root 6 over 4. Done another way, this is equivalent to if instead of making root 2 and root 6, I factor instead. This is equivalent to having 1 plus root 3 over 2 times root 2 over 2, which if I want, this is the same as 1 plus root 3 times root 2 all over 4. Those are two different ways to write the result. To me, this is fine, although this other way is, nothing wrong with it. It's just a different way of writing it. So there's the exact value of sine of 5 pi over 12. Now, you might wonder, well, why would we bother doing this? Why don't we just use a calculator? Especially if you're an engineer, you don't need the exact value. You just need a workable decimal approximation that has enough decimal precision. You use that number, no problem. Well, we're going to find that from time to time, we have to do things symbolically because we're going to have to deal with variables, not numbers. So in this particular thing where we have a sum or difference angle formula, we're going to do an application in a later video where you kind of can't just have the calculator do it for you. The calculator just is not equipped to do that. It's really an algebraic manipulation you have to do, and so you need this sum or difference angle formula. And if you're going to math, physics, engineering, chemistry, you're going to need to use these formulas from time to time because not everything is something you can type into a calculator. So there's that example. In the next video, we will do some more kind of like this.